All right, students, let's wrap up our work on percentages for the day. Before we do, let me say that I sure do miss you all. I wish we were in a classroom together rather than trying to do this online, but we're going to make the best of it. We'll all get through it. One other reminder, if your calculator has a percentage key, we don't use the percentage key. No percentage keys on these problems. Now for this last set of problems, we have to do things backwards. We're going to change decimals back into percentages. So if my decimal is 0.35, and I'm changing it back into a percentage, we'll move the decimal point to the right, 2 spots, making 0.35, 35%. If my decimal is 0.07, and I move my decimal point 2 spots to the right, 0.07 is 7%. Careful here. The decimal point is next to the 9. If I move it twice, I've got an open space which I must fill with a 0. 0.9 is the same as 90%. 1.4, always move the decimal point 2 spots. 1.4 is 140%. And 2.5, 250%. Here's some nice examples of what your homework is going to look like. What percent of 40 is 36? Think of this like you've taken a test. Out of 40 possible points, you got 36 right. 36 out of 40, that's pretty strong. That should be a good grade. Let's try it. We know is equals, of is times. Copy the 36, copy the 40, and our job is to find the percent. Let's solve that equation. If I want to get in by itself, then I get rid of the 40. The 40 and the n are being multiplied. In the inverse of multiplication is division. Now when I do that division, I must type in the 36 first. Type in 36, divide by 40. Type in 36, divide by 40. And my calculator gives me 0.9. For my final answer, then I must change that decimal into a percentage. So we'll move the decimal point 2 spots and call that 90%. If you get 36 correct out of 40, you got a 90%. That's a pretty good grade. There's my final answer. Here's the way you'll show your work. Let's try a second example. This one's kind of strange. What percent of 20 is 28? Well, what I notice is 28 is bigger than 20 is. So my answer is going to be more than 100%. Is equals, of is times. We're looking for the percentage. 28 is 28. 20 is 20. Now solve the equation. The inverse of multiplication is division. We'll divide 28 divided by 20. My calculator says 1.4. Now for my final answer, I have to change this decimal into a percentage. We'll move the decimal point 2 spots to the right, is 140%. 28 is bigger than 20, so it's more than 100%. It's actually 140%. Here's my good final answer. Here's the way I want you to show that work. Six is what percent of 40? Let's think of this one like a test again. If there's 40 questions on a test and you only got 6 right, that's pretty bad. That should not be a very high percentage. Is equals, of is times. What percent? That's what we're looking for. 40 is 40. 6 is 6. Let's solve that equation. I want n by itself. The inverse of multiplication is division. We'll divide by 40. On my calculator, I'll type the 6 in first. 6 divided by 40. My calculator gives me 0.15. Now for my final answer, I should change that decimal into a percentage. Move the decimal point 2 spots to the right. If I only got 6 right on a test of 40 questions, my grade is pretty low, only a 15%. Last example. And again, what I notice about this one, 96 is what percent of 80? 96 is bigger than 80, which means my answer is going to be more than 100. Is equals, of is times, we're looking for the percent. 80 is 80, 96 is 96. Let's solve that for the answer. The inverse of multiplication is division. Type in the 96 first. So it's 96 divided by 80. My calculator gives me 1.2. That's a decimal. To change that into a percentage, we'll move this decimal point 2 spots to the right and call that 120%. All right, you've got a few problems left to work. Do a great job, and I'll see you next week.